God.
Was that too soon?
I think you missed it just a little. Welcome to
Ah.
Marketing Trench. Today we're going to be speaking with our friend, their friend, and soon to be my friend, Mike Price, about websites and what they're actually good for. And before we dive into that subject, Mike, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and the unfortunate series of events that got you into Scott and Ricardo's life?
Yeah, I'm, I guess what you could refer to as an OG of the RE.net. That's what they used to call it back in the day. I've been at this for almost 25 years. So I started in with real estate marketing technology in '95. I was working as an independent marketing consultant, went to a networking meeting one day, and this guy stood up and said, "I run a title company." He said, "I was the first person to take everything from off of 3x5 cards and digitize and build a title plant. And I'm starting a thing called an internet service provider." So I followed the dude out into the parking lot and said, "We need to talk," because I was all into, what's going on with Earthlink, AOL, the whole 9 yards. So I went and met with the guy, and he was a visionary. I mean, he's like, "We're going to have to get these agents hooked up with email and websites and all that kind of stuff." So accelerate that up about 5 years. We set that up. Bob Hale of the Houston Association of Realtors takes credit for wiring all the agents and brokers in Houston. I can tell you that it was our company that definitely kicked that thing into gear. At one time we had legitimately hosted about 85% of the broker websites in Houston. And at one point we had about 6,000 dial-up internet customers with the funky noise of the 33.6 modems kicking in. They were all realtors.
For all you millennials out there, that was called a fax modem.
That's right.
That was called a modem back then.
Yes.
We don't have those anymore.
Yeah, it went to a really big deal when it went from 33.6 to what was it, 56K. Basically, they just doubled up the modems and charged more money for them. But anyway, as a result of that, I got introduced to all the MLSs in the area. All the MLSs that were outside of the Houston Association contacted me one day and said, "Hey, we want to build our own thing." And I spent 18 months and a lot of OPM trying to build a platform that was never going to happen because Bob Hale wasn't going to let it happen. But it was a good education. As a result of that, the ISP got sold, and I started what was probably one of the first application service providers on the web. And we built a platform that was one of the first cloud-based, from listing to post-closing platforms based on permissions. Title companies could get access to folders, inspectors, the whole 9 yards, similar to what you see transaction management platforms are today. It was early on, and the adoption of that was difficult. We had some paying customers, but I mean, it was way ahead of its time. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was one of the first out there, and we had a lot of firsts too. I mean, I think we were the first to put a virtual tour online, all kinds of stuff. So, all that happening stuff. Then a couple startups after that. I had a company called ML Broadcast that this was back, I think I was standing in line, one of the first people for an iPod, thinking this podcasting stuff's going to be really, really cool. And so built this really, really cool platform that nobody understood or got. But the way it worked was it was awesome. It was simple. We hit the listing, suck out the photos, stitch it together into a really lame Ken Burns style video. It wasn't about the video. Take the listing description, clean it up a little bit, fired it off to a voiceover person that would record the listing description, give it the naming convention of the MLS numbers, kick it back to me, attached it, stitched it together, and then distributed the crap out of it to all these different syndication platforms. So it was SEO gold. But another thing that was just way ahead of its time. So you know, that, done a lot of startup consulting, you name it, but just, yeah, 25 years of trying to help real estate professionals get the most they can out of their digital efforts. So
I would still argue that most technology feels like it's ahead of, maybe not its time, but ahead of the industry. You know, sometimes it takes industries a while to catch up with what technology is available to them. Which maybe, Dustin, you might be going there, but it kind of feeds into the conversation that we were having before we logged on here, which is, you know, what are you using a website for? What are you using this technology for? And why is it so hard to get it to work right?
yeah.
Yeah,
Right?
I mean, that's exactly right. So it's like, on the one hand, Mike, it sounds like your story is pioneering technology and, you know, trying to see what the potential is. But after people like you create that initial wave, there are other companies that follow up behind and are able, you know, the timing is better for them because you got the momentum going and now they're going to ride your momentum. And a lot of these companies, I think, exist right now presently in the kind of push button, get amazing website that does everything you want space for real estate agents, the kind of people who set up tables at NAR.
Push
And-
button, get results for a lot of them.
Exactly. Push button, get results. So we want to kind of dive into that because, you know, Mike, you've given this a lot of thought and you've now seen the industry kind of emerge behind you and you got the opportunity to kind of look back and say, all right, like what actually makes sense here? What is overbuilt? What is overpromised? And, you know, why are we seeing things, a lot of frustration on the agent side? So let's just dive in kind of at a high level. Mike, what do you think a website is actually good for, first of all?
You know, the answer to that question, a website's good for plenty if you're willing to put the work into it and use it as the part of the marketing funnel that's supposed to be. Otherwise, it's just a digital brochure. And you know, it all boils back down to content, and having a real content marketing strategy built around relationships. That's what this industry is. I mean, it's pure relationships, and it's overthought. You know, I don't know why that it can't be demystified better than it has been, but the whole concept of what a website should do for an agent, I think, is overthought, and they wring their hands over lead capture and all those kind of things. They're not educating themselves on the things that actually do work. So I think having the philosophy of understanding what content is, having a strategy built around adding that content to a site, making it genuine and authentic. You know, these are all things that are really simple. It doesn't require a technical background in order to do it. The push button part about what you talked about, at least to that point, the technology with regards to SaaS products, software as a service, everything's built out. So if an agent wants to get access to the technology, they don't have to go get a degree in anything to understand how to actually physically use the stuff. It's building the content that develops the relationships that ends up working. So whether it's understanding what blogging is, whether it's understanding a testimonial and review strategy, you know, I think like you guys said, you know, you get these terrible templated sites and it's got the little section in there for testimonials where you go and copy an email that you got from somebody and stick it in there, and then that's your strategy, right? No, that's not going to work. You know, you're not telling the story that needs to be told. So understanding what storytelling is, understanding that content marketing isn't that complicated, and just kind of pulling all those pieces together. You know, I think when you land on a website, consumers are looking for, obviously they want to see listings, but they want to know market values. And the other thing that I'm big on is hyperlocal. Is really, really, really understanding at a granular level your neighborhoods that you farm and how to create the content around that and put it in your platform so that when people land on that site, this is somebody I want to develop a relationship with. They understand the market. They understand the fact that I'm buying a home, which is the nucleus of my life. You know, I'm not just buying a house, and I think that's the important. It's not complicated to do. Everything that happens around somebody's life happens based on that home. So building the content pieces around it, and it can be so simple too. I mean, one thing I don't understand is why agents don't take advantage of the relationships they have with people in neighborhoods. If I were an agent, and I'm never going to be, but if I were, if I were, I mean, I would be taking this thing out at least once a week, and I'll go to the barber, the candlestick maker, everybody, and walk up and say, in 60 seconds, tell me why you love this neighborhood. Just 60 seconds, tell me why you love this neighborhood. Save it, go back home, write a short blog post around that fact. Take a saved search of IDX listings of that neighborhood, all the homes that are around in there, and build a landing page, and drop that content in.
Love Where You Live is a video strategy that I've seen more than a few agents kind of execute pretty well.
Yeah, and to do it, if you do it well, you're building that library of evergreen content that eventually is going to get some long tail love. And by long tail, I mean the fact that you're not thinking about the fact that you're creating this content with the intent of somebody generating a lead like that. The calls to action that you build within that content need to be very authentic and very genuine, and based around the fact that this content exists for me to develop a relationship with you and help you. And that may be somebody that's not going to be in the market for a while. But there could be a golden person in somebody's in somebody's CRM, you know, at some point.
Mike, is there a website that we could take a look at that you think does this especially well? Some of this Love Where You Live kind of stuff.
Yeah, there's one gal in it's flowertownrealty.com. She's in South Carolina. It's not the most beautiful site in Oregon. It's a good site. But the content that she's built around she's brought everything together with regards to her social strategy, the blog posts that she writes, everything. And I started working with her when I worked for FBS, the Flex MLS folks. I want to say it was about 4 years ago, and she was one of the people that attended every webinar. I mean, just rapidly consumed every piece of content that I developed, and built out a content. I think it's as good as you're going to get from somebody with the kind of resources that she has. The blog posts that she writes are all very, very helpful, and she's built a solid social strategy around it. She has a Facebook page that has almost 8,000 followers on it. I mean, and it was because she went in, and it's Live Love Somerville, similar to what we were talking about before, Ricardo, with regards to that. But she's run the gamut of bringing together just fantastic lifestyle information into that platform. And like I said, now she's got like 3.5 years, and she's got almost 8,000 people. It's league gold for her.
So I'd like to build on a little bit of what Mike is talking about here, because it's so funny because, you know, back, Mike, when you and I probably met first and Ricardo 10 plus years ago, technology was a lot more complex, and there weren't great websites. It wasn't as easy to publish and connect the dots the way that it is today.
They were very static websites.
They were very static websites. IDX wasn't completely figured out. It was Diverse Solutions maybe was your best, you know, WordPress plugin or something back then. But it's so funny that now 10 years later we're talking about the exact same things that we were talking about back then. But it really is. It's easier than ever to execute on that strategy. And you know, Mike, you mentioned you're buying a house but you're really buying a home. I would take that one step further and I would say you're investing in a community.
Absolutely.
And in order to create a home, you have to feel comfortable in a community. And that's what these hyper local agents are really good at. You see, she's got timely and relevant information. She's talking about what do you do after you get out of forbearance. She's talking about cool things that are happening in this community in 2021. That's going to pop up in a bunch of completely unrelated searches to real estate.
Yep.
And that's always been the key, is you want to be the center of, you want to be the go-to for information about your community. And by the way, the reason why I know everything about this community is because I create homes. I sell homes in this community.
Homes.
Yeah,
That's right.
Josh said something the other day, and it was, everyone wants to know how do I compete with the portals? How do I outdo my competition? And it was simple as, you got to know your market. You got to know your market better than the next guy.
And
I feel like
portals
you're
don't
absolutely
know.
right.
Zillow doesn't know anything.
Exactly.
Yeah, Zillow doesn't know anything about Flower Town.
Correct.
No, they don't. And that's the thing that I've really tried to drive home. When you're building you're a real estate salesperson that owns your own business, you have to have something at some point that you want to sell somebody. I mean, if I'm gonna spend 15 years building a business, then I want some intellectual property. I want to have something that I can actually sell to somebody. When you build a business, you build it for the purpose of selling it at some point, at some multiple of whatever you invested in the first place. And I think people don't put enough thought into the fact that you have the ability through these content resources to build something that at some point is going to have that kind of value. But it also gives you, as you if I create all this content, all this intellectual property, and I can wrap searches around it and do the whole 9 yards, I own it. That's it. That's mine. And Zillow can't compete with that. I got to tell you, Trulia is trying it, and one of the things I'd like to do is I'll do a wrap up of this and create a document and drop it on my website for everybody to download later, so that it'll have links to the things that we're talking about now. But Trulia is stepping up and actually trying to develop good hyperlocal content around neighborhoods. I don't know how successful they're going to be able to be at it, but that's the first large portal that's actually made a concerted effort to come up with good, genuine, authentic content, other than, these days you can get anything you want from Atom Solutions or Onboard or whatever, and it's the same rote Chamber of Commerce data, stuff that anybody else could get, noise levels, walking distance, all that kind of stuff. Anybody can pull that stuff in and add it to a website, and it's good to have, when somebody does a search, to have those little lifestyle things associated with the listing when you do the search, but it still doesn't do anything to differentiate that agent from somebody else. Anybody that does a search is seeing that exact same content, just packaged in a different way. But
and Mike, you also mentioned something.
It's all about storytelling to me. So if somebody's I've got a lot of respect for people in this industry, man. When you get involved with these transactions, you're becoming a part of that person's family, because you're helping them build that home, that relationship, the whole 9 yards. And you've got the ability to pull stories from that and create success stories that you can create your own content for, that are going to be winners. I mean, just absolute winners. Each transaction's different, and different things are going to pop up. And I think being as completely authentic about it as you possibly can, even if it's a cautionary tale about something that you screwed up, I think that would go longer than anything. He's like, hey, I totally messed up this transaction because I didn't do this right. I didn't recognize this. but here's the story, and build it and drop it in. When somebody sees that, then they're immediately going to think in their mind, this is the kind of person I want to develop a relationship with. And it's so overthought. It's not that difficult. Agents always, you guys have all heard this. I'm not a writer. I can't write blog posts. Don't overthink it. You don't have to be a writer to tell a story. You don't have to be a videographer to stick an iPhone up. And matter of fact, the more polished it is, I think, depending on what the content is, the more polished it is, the better chance you have of somebody just zipping past it. I mean, we all know that the average YouTube video gets viewed for 7 seconds, 10 seconds, maybe. So, it's about the structure of the content, the quality of it, and whether or not it's truly genuine and authentic. If it is, you're going to be way ahead of your competition. And you have to have a place to hold all that stuff, and it's called a website.
Yeah.
So,
I'd like to build on some of the content strategies.
I lost you guys' audio. I lost the audio.
Can you hear me?
His
AirPods died.
His AirPods died.
Oh, no.
Let me refresh.
Yeah. No, his AirPods died.
Okay, well, he's refreshing. I want to circle back on a couple of things that he talked about that I thought were super important. One of the things when we talk about community, and he talked about pulling your iPhone out and talking. Okay, hopefully Mike has a headset.
No, I'm gonna text him right now.
Yeah, why don't you text him and let him know we can hear him?
Yeah.
We can hear him. He just can't hear us. Okay.
Yeah. So go ahead, Scott.
Okay. So, we had kind of, he mentioned a couple of different things about creating content. And again, I think people way overthink that piece of it, and they way overthink what type of content they should be writing about or that they should be talking about.
100%. And I'm totally going to mess up your train of thought because,
Thank you.
and I'm so sorry. You're 100% right. And we had a meeting with an agent the other day, and he has an opportunity to run a banner ad on a local community website that gets about 1,000 site visitors a day. Okay. That's a lot of traffic.
Sure.
So let's say, even 20,000 site visitors a month. Like, that's a heavily trafficked website. It's a local community forum.
Yeah.
And so he wants to do this banner ad, and we sat down and we said, okay, let's come up with the content strategy for how you want to capture these people. It's a local community forum, and most people are asking about HOA fees in a specific area. Don't you think the HOA fees are kind of high here? What other communities do you recommend? They're asking legitimate buying questions, right? And
so they're providing all of the content.
Yes, but his idea for the banner ad, his initial idea for the banner ad was such and such community exclusive realtor, right? Like your number one realtor or your talk community exclusive realtor. And I thought to myself,
his banner ad was look at me.
Yeah, yes.
When they're there to learn about the community.
And so what I try to communicate as nicely as possible is I don't care about you. I have a question. My question is $550 for an HOA fee seems kind of high here. Are there any other communities that have the same layout that maybe have a lower HOA fee? Or is this kind of what I'm stuck in?
So what would be a good example of a banner ad then?
So I let's say it was Talk Costa Mesa. I would focus on, what are the 5 things you need to know before buying in Costa Mesa?
How much does it cost to live in Costa Mesa?
How much does it cost to live in Costa Mesa?
That opens the doors to all of those conversations.
That stuff is going to pique my interest more so than my name is Scott, your exclusive realtor, your exclusive, Talk Costa Mesa realtor.
Devil's advocate, because these people are going there to learn more about the community, and it's like, oh, Scott, he must know everything there is to know about the community because he's the realtor there. Why is that thinking wrong?
I don't know if that's going to be anybody's default thinking, but I do think that if you presented yourself as a community expert, it would not be that great of a trust leap for them to instantly, especially if you are. So what we're talking about with online traffic and with content is really bridging trust from a Google search to a human being. And the consumer is already on a community site that is about the community. So you already have that trust. You're already affiliated or associated with, you already have that trust asset that wraps any message that you deliver. So the very fact that you are given access to have a voice on this community site, you're halfway there. And so anybody who's a visitor on that site probably presumes that anybody on that site talking about the community is an expert about that community. And it's, so I think that changes. But what Ricardo brings up is such an important pivot in thinking about how we promote our businesses.
And I think when we build a website, we want it all to be about me. I've sold 50 homes. I've done this. I've done X. I'm not saying that's not important. That's certainly important if you had a listing presentation and you're, competing for that one listing with two of your fiercest competitors. Yes, you can bring up your sales record. I've closed 50 listing, and on average, we sell our homes for 9% above asking price. Like, that stuff is stuff that you leverage. I don't think you need to lead with it if you're building your website. Like, make it less about you and more about communicating the fact that you are the local market expert, and you do that through content. You don't do it through, I'm the best.
Right.
Okay, so let's talk for a second about content. And I wish Mike was still here, because I would like to push back on this a little bit. He said a website is where you hold all of your content.
Yeah.
I don't know. I kind of feel like YouTube is where you hold all of your content, or Facebook, or some other platform.
And Mike would be able to build on this, but this is hub and spoke strategy. Your website is where you hold all of your content. YouTube, hub. Facebook, everything else is where you promote your content. But ultimately, you want to store your content in an environment where you can 100% control the consumer experience. You can't control the customer's eyeballs or clicks on Facebook or YouTube, but you can get your information out there, and then say, to get the rest of the story or to learn more, then you come back to this hub, you come back to the website. And that's kind of a marketing strategy. There's nothing wrong with housing all of your content in those places, but you look at what Facebook just did. Facebook is deplatforming people left and right now for pretty much no real reason. I've had a couple of business managers shut down. Some really big people on Facebook have been shut down, and Facebook's not explaining why. And we know some of it has to do with the iOS 14, I guess, some of Apple's mobile stuff. But when you store your content on these other platforms, you're subject to whatever those platforms want to do with your content. So, but keep it at home, rent it to these places.
The website becomes very burdened very quickly, right? Because let's just assume you're somebody like Jeb, who's just been a monster producing content, right? Just killing it. Mm-hmm. You really going to have all of those videos on your website? Like, how do you make that navigable?
Well, you don't have to. And this has been my experience over the last 13 years with Find My Way Home. 90% of my traffic, and this is Mike alluded to this, that's that long tail gold. So when you talk that much about your community, people are going to find that article where you're talking about that specific thing that they're looking for. When somebody's looking for the best barber shop for kids in Somerville, and then Susan Somerville or whatever her name was did an interview with the barbershop that specializes in doing haircuts for kids. And then, by the way, all these homes are available within 2 miles of this barbershop in an IDX link underneath that article. That is absolute pure gold. My first website before it was Find My Way Home, literally nobody ever went to the homepage. There was no homepage. It was just thousands of articles jumbled together, not organized at all. But I had specific articles in there that would get thousands of visitors a month because that particular topic was a hot topic that people were asking about.
And so the other thing is that IDX isn't what it used to be years ago. What I mean is, you can't just buy a website today and expect it to rank just because of the IDX listings that are syndicating on the website.
Right.
You need a content strategy beyond just a website with an IDX.
Right. But like what we were talking about, the Somerville is not going to even come up on Zillow. So if her name is Somerville Realty and somebody's typing in anything to do with Somerville, and she happens to be the business owner in Somerville that's publishing the most content about the community, her website's always going to show up on top. And then the real estate is just oh, by the way, the reason I know all of this stuff, here's some listings that you can look at. But at the end of the day, it's raw. It's the person who takes the initiative to put their community on the map.
Okay, so that's really interesting because, as you guys know, having worked through some websites with me, when I sit down and I look at a website, the first thing I do before I wireframe or anything is I type in a Google Doc, and what I'm typing are the first, second, third, and fourth visual priorities. Right. So like when you land on a homepage, what's the first most important thing you should see, second, third, fourth? And what you guys are saying is, yeah, like homepages matter, but the first point of entry probably won't be the homepage. And in Scott's example, it wasn't the homepage at all because he didn't even have one. It's this content you're creating, and any content you're able to link to it. And all you really need to do is give people enough that they want to take that next step and reach out to you. Is that accurate?
Yeah, very few people will find your articles from your homepage. They'll find your articles from the search engine, and then maybe they'll click on the logo and see your homepage. Absolutely. Most high traffic websites, unless you're a known brand and you really are putting a lot of money behind the brand and putting out your root domain, whatever your web address is, to try to drive people to your homepage. But I would say even if you were doing that, you're falling short of getting the engagement that you really want because you're trying to sell people a brand and you're not earning people's trust by exhibiting knowledge about what they're searching for.
Okay, so I see Mike. Let's see if I can bring him back in. You there?
I'm here. Can you guys hear me?
Yes. Yep. Can you hear us?
Yep.
All right, we're in business.
Okay, yeah. StreamYard just got weird on me, and it wouldn't let me.
It's all good.
Let me turn it back on. So anyway, sorry about that, fellas. What did I miss?
Okay, so what we were just talking about, couple different things, but one of the big revelations we're kind of working through right now is I had pushed back on your idea that your website is a place you should put all your content. And the reason I'd pushed back on it was because I felt like it overburdened the website. But one of the things Scott got us around to is, hey, look, the homepage and whatever else you're doing to sort of hierarchically structure the information on your site might not matter at all, because people aren't necessarily coming to your site because they're going to www.yourwebsite.com and landing on your homepage. You're coming because they found you through a search and they're entering at the point of an article or this content that we're talking about creating, right?
Exactly. Yes.
Which I think raises another question. That is, where, Mike, in your opinion, does a website with all of its content sit in terms of the funnel?
Good question. And I might answer that based on what you just said. It could be a number of different places. it doesn't necessarily have to exist at the top of the funnel. There's a lot of places where people are going to come in. They won't even come in through your web page. Landing page strategies are something that I'm really big on as well. Creating content, one page of content specific to whatever it is you want to try to accomplish. Whether you've got, let's say you have a high-end listing that has some unique features to it that you want to build a strategy around just that piece of property. There's a number of different things you could do. Let's say it's an event that's taking place and you want to add an IDX safe search to it. You want to build that content based on whatever that particular, whatever you're trying to accomplish with that piece of content. So people aren't necessarily coming directly into the website at the top of the funnel all the time.
So, Mike, real quick, when you talk about landing pages, are you talking about an external landing page, or is this something that's built under the hierarchy of your website? So it's like your website / it's not necessarily listed in your navigation, but is it still on your website?
It's still in your website, but it may not necessarily fall into the navigational menu structure.
And there's no exit. There's no exit points because you want the traffic to accomplish a certain goal of taking a specific call to action. So there's no links out to anything.
No, and it's just, and you'll have your calls to action and everything are specific to that content. So I've always recommended creating content like that with a simple contact form on it. Name, phone number, email, or maybe not even the phone number, just the name and email dropped in as the call to action for that particular piece of content. So, and there are people that are really, really good at creating these type of content pieces and working with the right kind of keywords, the structure, to where if somebody's doing a search, they're going to be much more likely to find that content than they would otherwise. So I'll in that download document that I create, I'll show some specifics. But go ahead.
I'm a little afraid that you're making it sound more complicated than it is.
It's not complicated at all.
It's not. Literally, the fact that you're creating content around a specific topic, just a specific subject and not something general, is exactly what you're talking about, right? It's not rocket science. Yeah,
it is absolutely not rocket science at all. For instance, I've seen the one-page strategy for listings, the one-page website strategy for listings. I think is a really good one if you built it out properly. So, if I were an agent, domain names cost what, $7-8 if you know where to get one. 123 Main Street, creating the right kind of resource for that listing. And having all the calls to action based on that listing and that separate resource is something that's going to look good to your client. You're going to say, look, I've built this within my website as a specific marketing resource for this property.
And then your IDX,
pull together.
Then your MLS listing becomes a snippet, which leads you to more pictures, more explanation, more descriptions, more amenities, more everything, right? So
exactly.
Then your MLS listing becomes the top of the funnel and your website becomes the middle.
Absolutely. And there's so much you can do with an IDX safe search. I mean, IDX is not dead if you use it properly. It absolutely is. And there's so many things you can do with safe searches that, and it really should be something that's top of mind when you're creating content in the first place. If I'm writing a blog post and I'm mentioning, the fact that a new playground got built at this particular park, I'm creating a safe search and I'm dropping it in right there within that content. Even if there's no listings there, I mean, you're pulling in the content that needs to be pulled in, and IDX safe searches make it simple and easy to do.
So absolutely. Here's a place to live within a mile of this park.
This is somebody that I've mentioned before, but Ryan, Brian has built a website for the villages over in Florida. And then this is one of those communities. It's Citrus Hills. If you go through, this is just a landing page, discover the villages of Citrus Hills, view our brochure, watch our webinar, or schedule a visit. And as you go through, it's kind of just a, 2.5, 3 minute welcome video. It's their resident testimonials. He has, some pretty good copy here that describes the makeup of the community. Here's some virtual tours. And then view our move-in ready homes. So that links to the listings that you can
search. Yeah?
Yep. And then here are all of the amenities that make up that community. I would basically build this for each of the look at how he just describes exactly everything about this particular community.
Yeah, in that document that I created, I'm going to post some stuff that Compass is doing. Compass is as their marketing folks are amazing. A good friend of mine just moved over to them recently. Ken Brand.
Okay.
Yeah, they're just okay. No, these content resources that they're creating are dead on hyperlocal gold. There would be the kind of thing I would build. I think they're a little light. It depends on where they pull the content, and some of them are light on video, but the copywriting's good, and they've absolutely nailed it. So I'll include some links to the stuff that they're creating there as well. But they get it. They definitely get it when it comes to the lifestyle and hyperlocal resources. There's nothing stopping an agent from creating, just like you showed right there. There's so many of them that are doing it properly, but I think it's, they get so impatient and they want the results right away. This is a long tail process, and once you have it built,
they expect push button get results.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I invested $15. I need my $30 return now.
This is also another one of the funny kind of perceptions, or misperceptions that people have is when they first got access to the internet, you're like, oh my gosh, I get in front of so many people on the internet. There's billions of people out there. But the reality is you need to talk to one person that's interested in what you have to offer. And then you need to replicate that as many times as you can. You're not going to talk to everyone on the internet, but you want to talk to everyone that might be thinking of moving to Somerville or whatever the town is. Yep. So narrow works so much better than broad on the internet, which is almost counterintuitive to how the internet is sold to us, which is access to the world's information, right? Access to everything all the time instantaneously.
Yeah, it goes back to the long tail thing. I mean, the fact that the people want to buy one or two songs off the album, they don't want the whole damn album. So that whole long tail mentality and building the right kind of content resources around it, so that wherever your farm is, you can make something happen. You could do it with niches as well. I mean, if there's so many people out there that do effective jobs. If it'd be horse properties, it could be lake properties. There's a guy up in Minnesota that I'm trying to remember, Cormorant. But this guy's built a killer resource. All the lakes that are around there, he's built an individual resource for each one of those lakes, and tied it into to his entire content marketing strategy, and it's fantastic. I mean, you look at it and you think I would definitely want to work with this guy,
so
as opposed to.
I remember it in Ari Bar Camp. Oh man, again. 8-9 years ago, and there was a guy who was up in California, kind of near the San Pedro, kind of Long Beach area. The realtor was a gearhead, and he loved working on cars. So he built his entire business around houses that had a 3-car garage that you could build a shop in. And so those were the homes that he would pull into the IDX search. So you could just do a search for homes with a 3-car garage that could be converted into a shop.
Oh,
And
wow.
that was his niche. And he did really, really well at it. I mean, legitimately, how many people a year do you need to see that website? 100? Right?
Yep.
And maybe sell half of them houses.
Right.
You're going to be in the 80th or the top 10 percentile of volume for your community if you pull that off. And it's a different way of thinking that the vendors are not including in their pitch when they're selling their products.
So,
Because like Ricardo says, they're selling push button cash check when it's really not that. It's that long tail. It's that long game.
so it sounds like we agree. And Mike, your answer to the initial question of like, where does the website fit in the funnel? We agree that it can fit in multiple points of the funnel, right? It could be top of the funnel, an ad could be at the top, and then there's like a specific landing page kind of in the middle. Do we also all agree that it's not at the bottom? Like the point of a website is not to close a deal.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely.
I would agree with that.
I think it's to earn trust.
It is. And it's like I said at the very beginning, it's about establishing that relationship and as difficult as it is, to establish a relationship with someone, I just think it's so much easier if people don't overthink it. That's the biggest problem. I just think it's completely overthought.
Well, and I asked the question from the perspective of call to action, because every website should have a call to action, like a contact me, but not like that. But that's the idea. And so the call to action then needs to understand that the point is not hire me. Like, right, that would be a bad call to action. What would be some good calls to action, Mike, in your opinion, on a website?
Short and sweet, and like you said, they have to be super short and sweet, and based on the fact that I'm here to help you. I'm a resource, not let me set an appointment to get you in my car and drive you around everywhere. So, and the CTA needs to be geared towards that content. You can't use the same thing. You've got to look at the overall holistic view of the content that you've created, and then create your CTAs based on that. So
let me build on that and give you a couple of examples. So I think it's important if you're going to be this local expert, I think you should take the initiative and do a small business spotlight and go around to other entrepreneurs that have small businesses in the community that don't have the technical acumen. They don't have people like us talking about how to get their donut shop online. And then maybe the call to action is sign up for this newsletter to see all of my small business spotlights in this area.
Yep.
Or if you're doing upcoming events, we'll sign up for this email list and we'll send you all of the new events that come up in this community, in this town. And then when they click on that, they're going to the landing page on your website that talks, well, not even a landing page, because that's a blog post, in the context or the framework of the rest of your website, so that they see what you actually do and they understand, because people are going to want to know why you know all this stuff.
Yep.
And when you say I know all of this stuff because I create, I'm responsible for the home ownership in this community. It's a very short. So call to action, because especially we know this now more than ever, the money's in the database.
Yep.
And the more you can collect data, the more you can collect their information and stay engaged with them. Somebody that signs up for an IDX is only going to be interested till they buy a home. But how do you stay engaged with that person to sell them their second home, to sell homes to their friends? You do that by continuing to be an expert about this community, that person is so excited that you help them. They're telling all of their friends, I learned about this community from this great website. And it just so happens you're the person that can help their friends become homeowners in that community as well.
Yep. Yeah, and if you're going to create those lead magnets, it needs to go back to the authenticity and being genuine as well. It needs to be a resource that they can get something out of. Not I subscribe to these companies that have these
Well, and you
lame
know
ass
what?
things. You just change the name on the cover and you've got your own magazine. Not that kind of stuff.
Well, and you know what's so funny, Mike, is and like you keep saying that people are overthinking it, and hopefully I can show, I can prove that your website should sound exactly like if you were sitting across the table from that person and meeting them. Right? You're not just sitting there saying, "Do you want to sign up for my list? Do you want to give me your email?" You're saying, "No, this is a great community. Have you been to that little Italian restaurant down there? It's amazing. When you stop, I tell them I sent you down there." You're having a conversation with that person and you're building trust with them.
The end goal is, gosh, Scott, I feel like I know you already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And your voice needs to carry that through. No, absolutely. I think we could do some funny videos where you record it based on the other ones. Like, well, you can just record it. It's like, sign up now.
Yeah, no, how it's
It'd be
how
hilarious,
obnoxious is that, and
Yeah.
people don't understand that websites are one-on-one conversations. They for some reason something got into people's heads that it's a broadcast medium, and it's not a broadcast medium. It's a one-on-one conversation with the person that's visiting the website.
There you go.
It's the exact same relationship as if they were introduced to you by somebody that you know, except for they were introduced by Google. But it's the same conversation.
You don't have to be Bloomberg to publish content.
No.
And I going back to demystifying everything and I guess maybe stripping some of that stuff out, the words publish or something. Maybe there are better ways to communicate it, but it goes back to what I said at the very beginning. They're overthinking it and demystifying things, I think, are ways that we would be more successful helping brokers and agents understand what content marketing is. Even that sounds, too much.
Clinical. It all sounds so clinical and technical.
And that's why I like Gary Vaynerchuk, the way he goes about stuff. I mean, with the exception of some of the language he uses, but I mean, it doesn't bother me. But anyway, he pounds that point home. It's not rocket science. It's not rocket science. Yep. So, storytelling. That's the thing, man.
I also wouldn't, I wouldn't, people think about getting the content out. Don't dismiss how simple it can be to record a video. And again, this video can be a Zoom call like this with a business owner or the mayor or the head of the city council or the head of the HOA, and transcribe it. You don't have to be a copywriter. Transcribe it, put the video out there, and then you're letting Google see all of the keywords of the conversation. It's not going to read great, but most people are going to watch the video anyhow. And so you're at least exploiting the search, the ways that you can be found online that way.
And you can use...
that's amazingly easy to do. And then you can use other tools on top of it to fix it. I mean, if you Grammarly, I can. The $120 I spend for a year on Grammarly is gold. I you guys know this too, man. It's like you got to put that comma behind the "and." I don't know why. After 15 years, I still can't remember that it's supposed to go there, but Grammarly fixes it for me. So same thing with this. I mean, you've got that.
Fix the red lines. Fix the squiggly red lines. That's it.
If you're creating.
And ask somebody else to look at it and kick it out.
If you're creating video, you can pop that into Descript afterwards to get it transcribed, and you easily got yourself a blog post.
Yep.
Yeah, technology has come so far. The method, the way that you're successful online is exactly the way that it was 10 years ago, but the technology has gotten to the point where there is almost no excuse now. It is so simple to use this technology. You don't need a lot of skills, and there's somebody on Fiverr or Updesk that'll do almost anything you don't think you're comfortable with, and it's going to cost you, and it's
Absolutely.
not going to cost you much.
$15. Yeah. Yeah. No, makes perfect sense to me.
Well, I think this is a good place to wrap it up. We're at time. So, Mike, thanks for coming on the show, giving us your thoughts about websites.
You
and kinda
bet, guys. Yeah. I
Got it.
apologize for the technical difficulties, but hey, thanks for having me. I'd love to do it again.
And can you tell people where to find you?
Yes, MikePrice.me. That's pretty much it. Or you can send me an email to mike@mikeprice.me.
You couldn't get the prices right .me?
No, they wouldn't let me have that one. That's funny you guys brought that up though. We did a whole thing based on Prices Right on the stage at one of the FES summits, where I asked questions in the whole 9 yards. We even bought the music for it in the whole 9 yards. Man, I did my Bob Barker thing. It was cool. It was cool. I thought it was going to be uber corny, but it actually turned out to be really cool. So, you had to do something because it was. They always had me the last person. You imagine being the last person of a 3-day summit. Everybody's just whipped. It's like, how are you going to get anybody's attention, man? So that's why we did it, and it worked.
I love it.
That's amazing. And if you're listening to the show, you found this to be helpful in any way, you can find more content just like this by going to marketingtrench.fm, or we have our previous episodes. You can also listen to Ricardo's podcast, so I don't know why you would. Ricardo, where would people find you? Where would people find that podcast?
That one's easy. That one's ricardobueno.com.
And so you have your Monday boost, your weekly boost?
Weekly boost.
A weekly boost. It's a great podcast, all kidding aside. And then, of course, we're a part of the Real Disrupt Podcast Collaborative, where there are other great podcasts on lending, on real estate, on anything you're interested in this industry. And you can find those over at realdisrupt.com. All right, guys.
I'm going to do a wrap-up blog post on my blog about this. So I pull in links to some of the resources and things that we talked about. So I'll have that up at mikeprice.me in the next day or so.
Thanks,
Awesome.
Mike. That's awesome.
Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it. Honored to be here with you guys. I'll come back and do it anytime you'll have me.
All right. Until next time, this has been the Marketing Trench.
Yeah.